is green. All indications are green. The meeting is yours, Mr. Confletti. Let me know if you need anything.
All right, thank you, Ken. Welcome to the Lyon Township Planning Commission meeting for Monday, June 28th, 2021. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. Kelly, if you take roll, please.
Patricia Carconi.
Present in Lyon Township, Michigan.
Jim Chuck.
Present, Lyon Township, Oakland County, Michigan.
Michael Confletti.
Here, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Bronco Mitkowski.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Ron Pennington.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Kurt Radke.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Carl Town.
Here, I'm president of Lyon Township, Michigan.
All right, very good. If we could have approval of tonight's agenda.
Move approval of tonight's agenda as submitted.
Support
Okay,
by Carl.
motion by Mr. Chuck, support by Mr. Town. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right. Approval of consent agenda, May 24th, 2021 minutes.
Once again, I'll approve the minutes as submitted if there are no corrections.
Support.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Chuck, support by Mr. Town. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, Brian, did you have a comment to make?
I do. I would just like to note, so the next item on your agenda is comments from the public on non-agenda items. We do ask that the public limit their comments to 2 minutes and pertain those comments to non-agenda items. If you're here to speak for or against the temple that is on our new business, AP 21-22, there will be a public hearing when you may voice your verbal or written comments. That meeting will be held on July 12th. It will be a Zoom meeting. It'll be 7 o'clock that evening, a Zoom meeting. The meeting link and phone number for call-in to submit your comments is going to be available on the township website. So that is the appropriate time to make comments on the project. This evening is just for conceptual review. We are asking the Planning Commission to make comments relating to the plan itself, any dimensional requirements, any site plan or engineering questions or things that we need to discuss this evening, but we'll be limiting comments to the use to that July 12th meeting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I believe we start live in July, don't we? Does someone know for sure?
August.
Yeah,
Okay.
that meeting.
Yeah,
It's
August.
It's August. Okay, so we're gonna stick.
Yeah, that meeting on the 12th, we had to post the public hearing notice to the paper before the governor opened the state up. And so to meet that timeline, we had it scheduled for a Zoom meeting for July 12th.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks, Brian. Now we take comments from the public, anything that's not on the agenda tonight. If you have any comments or questions.
I'll take it at this point, Mr. Confletti. Yeah, if anyone would like to make a comment on non-agenda items, we'd like to mention again that these are for non-agenda items. Feel free to press *9 on your keypad, and that will raise your virtual hand, and we will call on you when your hand is raised. Again, if you'd like to make comments on non-agenda items, you'll need to press *9 on your keypad. So we'll give it just a moment here. Not seeing any hands raised at this time. And one last call. Again, if you'd like to make comments on non-agenda items, please press *9. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Confletti.
Okay, thanks, Ken. No DDA report tonight. Brian, if you start us off, AP 21-23A, site plan.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So up for conceptual review on the site plan this evening is a plan for a proposed religious institutional use at the northwest corner of 9 Mile and Napier Road. So currently the property is largely vacant. There was a residential home on this smaller lot previously, but there's nothing on there currently. So we're looking at these two lots in combination. Religious institutional uses are special land uses in the R05 district. So that's why we are holding the public hearing on July 12th. We wanted to go through the site plan and make sure that we were addressing any issues or concerns ahead of that meeting so that we can focus on the use at that time. The scale and scope of this, you can note in our June 9th and June 24th letters. I'm going to be hopping back and forth a combination of the two. The applicants have submitted a site plan and made some revisions. So that's the reason for the two letters. But in general, this project will be a just over 65,000 square foot building on the 11.65 acre site. It will be for religious institutional uses, but there are also teaching facilities and an assembly hall in the basement of this structure as well. All of those details can be found in the architectural drawings that have been submitted. We have all the required ownership information that we need to confirm that the applicants have an ownership stake in this property. All of the setback requirements have been met for the building and the parking lot. So we have no concerns with the setbacks as they are proposed. In terms of lot coverage, the total lot coverage right now is just under 39% or 46% if you don't include the right-of-way that will be dedicated as part of this project. So our required standard here in the R05 district is 25%. So this is an item that we need to discuss this evening, and if we deem it appropriate, the applicants will need to pursue a variance. That variance would be considered after this project goes through the site plan and the special land use procedures, and a decision is made by the township board on the special land use. The building height is the other variance that is being requested as part of this application. The proposed building, the average height is 27.6 feet, where our limit is 25 feet from grade. The architectural drawings show that there is a spire on the structure. Actually, there are 7 called gopuram that are part of this building. The tallest of which is 83 feet 11 inches. Our ordinance exempts spires and similar structures from the height limitations. And so while this is a tall structure, those structures that exceed our 25-foot limit are exempt from the requirement. So the only variance that we're talking about will be the parapet wall that runs much of the length of the building. We have a couple comments regarding the dumpster location in the screening. The dumpster location is in an appropriate spot for the use. It's on the northwest corner of the building, which is ostensibly the back of the building. We do note that the plans show that this should be a womanized wood gate on this structure. Our ordinance requires a composite material, and so that will need to be swapped out prior to consideration for approval. We noted in our early review that we needed to find a location, or a location needed to be shown for HVAC equipment, the transformer, and a generator. And it is noted that the HVAC equipment will be located on the roof of this structure. There's a transformer that's located here on the on the northwest corner of the building, right adjacent to the dumpster enclosure. We have no concerns with that location. The outdoor lighting plan that is proposed as part of this complies with our ordinance levels, which is a maximum of 0.5 foot candles at the property line. We have no concerns with the outdoor lighting. There are no proposed signs included in the site plan package, but it is common that these are signs are reviewed by the zoning administrator in their own application. Of course, at that time, we'll be checking for clear vision at the corner here and size and material and lighting standards for that sign. There are no areas shown for outdoor storage on the site, so we have no concerns with that. In terms of the parking and circulation, there are 301 parking spaces shown on the most current site plan, where the ordinance requires 287 based on the size of the facility. So there are 14 more spaces than are required. We have no concern with this item being met. I do want to note that if we're looking to minimize lot coverage, that would be a place to potentially do it, is to lose those 14 spaces that are not required per the ordinance. There's a loading space shown here on the northwest corner of the site. This is where we would expect it to be in the rear. And one of the things that we typically look at when we're citing a good loading dock is significant separation from property lines and some sort of natural buffer. This location here on the northwest corner is over 100 feet from the western property line and separated by this wetland structure, or wetland system. So we have no concerns with that loading space location. Based on the size of the building, there's a requirement for 3 loading spaces, but in reviewing the narrative and the information that's provided, this is not a use that we expect a lot of deliveries in. And so we believe that 1 is appropriate. Of course, the Planning Commission should comment on that. I note on the landscape plan, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to flip to that landscape plan because I'm having trouble loading the PDF, but there are some, the landscape plan largely complies with our ordinance. Our one note is that the eastern road frontage, there are not as many trees, street trees, deciduous street trees as are required. There are 13 trees that are required and 11 are shown on that side. And similarly, there's a deficiency on the 9 Mile Road frontage. The ordinance would call for 16 trees, 10 are provided. Now, as our report notes, the landscape plan does show significantly more ornamental trees on both sides. On the 9 Mile frontage, for example, there's 13 additional ornamental trees beyond what is required. And on the Napier Road frontage, there are 3 additional ornamental trees beyond what's required. So I'll leave it up to the Planning Commission. You do have discretion in landscape standards and how they apply. And so I would like the Planning Commission to discuss the ornamental versus shade tree topic. Next, we have pedestrian circulation. You'll note that there are pedestrian walkways out to both frontages coming from the building and through the parking lot. So it is possible for pedestrians to connect to the sidewalk here, or the pathway, the 10-foot pathway that is on Napier Road, as well as 9 Mile Road. Here is your pathway connection to the building. One item of note on the sidewalks is that because there is this wetland structure on the northeastern portion of the building or of the site, the sidewalk stops here right at the entranceway on Napier Road. So one item I'd like you to consider is either the applicant will need to contribute to the sidewalk fund or figure out a way to connect that to the northern border, but it is stopped because of this wetland system that is on the site. While I'm on the topic of circulation, the Road Commission has commented on the project and has not noted any intersection improvements that need to occur. They do have some comments in the packet regarding the design of the ingress and egress ways into the driveways on both 9 Mile and Napier. But in terms of traffic flow and volumes, there were no concerns presented from the Road Commission. My final note regarding circulation is we will need to see an auto turn analysis done for the site to make sure that the fire marshal can, or the fire department can reasonably maneuver around this building should they need to. Our last comment is, of course, our typical comment that the engineer needs to review the plan, and any action on a plan would be subject to the engineer's comments and the township attorney's comments. But other than those things, we will leave it at that for this evening. I won't make a recommendation this evening, but I do think that there are a few things that I'd encourage the Planning Commission to talk about and give direction to the applicant. And then understand that those 2 variances will need to be addressed further along in the process. Thank you.
Brian. Brian, can you address the building height? And also, are you able to read, was it section 12.14.b, how religious buildings are exempt from height standards?
Sure, you want me to read the ordinance?
If you have it, yeah.
I do, yes. Section 12.14b says exceptions to height standards. The height limitations of this ordinance shall not apply to chimneys, church spires, public monuments, wireless transmission towers, farm buildings, water towers, and flagpoles. And it goes on to note additional requirements that do not apply to this application.
Okay, right. Thank you. No questions for Brian? Okay, thank you, Brian. Rick? Rick Miner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no engineering issues to report, except that this site is dependent on the Section 36 utilities, which have been installed, but testing is not complete. But we would expect that to be done and finished in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Any questions for Rick?
Rick, was that section 36 utilities?
Yes, sir. That is directly south of this property.
Thank you.
Rick, what about seasonal flooding and the wetlands that are on the property? What can you tell us about that?
We are asking the engineer to do his analysis, including the downstream outlet. I know he has investigated that, and if he could address the Planning Commission directly.
That might be a good idea, maybe at our next meeting.
I would agree.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Carol, did you have anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay. All right. Could you just touch on maybe real quick the Regional Land Use Act of 2000 refers to churches and temples and these facilities. Does that give these organizations, I mean, is zoning equal to all? Does this give these types of projects preference?
RLUIPA is very complicated. There's 4 different prongs of RLUIPA. So if I were to sort of summarize for you, RLUIPA would prohibit you from making a land use decision that would substantially burden a the religion's right to exercise its religious beliefs, it would prohibit you from making a decision that where you were discriminating or treating them on unequal terms from other facilities that are similar in nature, meaning other assembly facilities. So, I mean, to some extent, yes, RLUIPA does require you to dive into a far deeper analysis than you would for any other land use application.
Do schools or daycare or gymnasiums, is that part of that also, or is that, does it fall under all the same heading, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's very typical that a place of worship will have accessory uses that go along with it. So, I mean, and what you're dealing with here is the request to locate a place of worship in the first instance, which does have some preference with the court.
What if the property, like the way the property is zoned now, it's residential. Now, if it was zoned for whatever, clubhouses, auditoriums, would that have more standing in this than right now? It's not zoned for that at all.
No. I
so-
mean, when the court does the analysis of unequal terms, it doesn't just look at the particular zoning classification. So for example, if in other zoning classifications, we permit assembly uses that are similar to this as of right, yet we require a special land use for this zoning classification, you know, that's what the court would look at. So not to say that you can't require a special land use in a residential zone, but the court would evaluate overall all your various equal uses in your zoning ordinance to see if this one is being treated differently in some respect.
Okay, then can I ask one more question? So would this give, say, and just this is an example, say if this went through with some tweaks, if another developer came in nearby and the property was zoned similar to this, but this project went through, would that applicant have standing in court saying, well, this was approved, so we can go forward on, you know, whatever project, gas station, strip mall, anything like that? And so
No, because RLUIPA applies only to places of worship, religious uses, and prisons. Okay, so it doesn't apply to other commercial type uses. So it's a unique situation, you know, that was passed to make sure, balance the right to exercise religion against the right to regulate land use.
okay.
So I'm being very general, okay, because, you know, I don't want to give a full legal opinion in a public meeting, but generally those are the things that you need to know.
Okay.
What I would suggest to you is you just recognize that RLUIPA exists, that, you know, you don't, when you're making your decision, you have to make it in a way, if you want to start changing things or want to start adding conditions, for example, to the special land use, what you have to keep in the back of your mind is, when I do this, am I substantially burdening their ability to exercise their religious beliefs?
Mhm.
Okay, and understand that we don't get to pick and choose as a community what we believe is a legitimate religious belief or part of the religion, okay? That's not for us to say. So I hope that gives you some idea.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. All right, applicant. Who's here tonight?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
So I'd like to lead off.
Okay, your name, give your name and address.
My name is Sadashiv Malya. Sada, it's listed as Sada on the TV screen. SADA. Were you able to locate me?
Kelly? Hold on,
Yes, I see him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay. All right,
You see on my,
okay, continue.
I'd like to introduce our team and the project, and then just an introductory to our project and the situation, and then before Doug describes the project. So my name is Sadashiv, and I'm here. The other people that in our room that you see are part of the temple. The gentleman in the center of the screen in the white shirt is Vijay Raghavan. He's our temple's founder and visionary for this project. He is accompanied today in this meeting by Mr. Narayan Swami, Mr. Krishna, Mr. Ram, and on the call also we have our design and development team led by architect Doug Nietzsche of BRN Architects, his colleague architect David Murphy, Mark Mahajan of Fairway Engineering, and our in-house development expert, Mr. Vikram Ganeshan, sitting behind me. And lastly, my name is Sadashiv. I wear two hats on this project. I'm also part of the temple, but I also work with Doug, representing the temple as the temple's designer and sustainability expert. So just to give you the committee a brief history about us. This temple, the Sri Bhakta Hanuman temple, came into fruition 4 years ago around this date, and are currently located on 30687 Grand River Avenue. Our temple's mission is to provide a place of worship that can serve not only the entire Hindu community, which has a wide variety of beliefs and subcultures, but also be part of the immediate community and neighborhoods that we end up being a part of. Over the past 4 years, since our temple has started, our congregation has outgrown the two small existing buildings that we currently occupy. This led Vijay to look for a unique piece of land that can not only welcome and accommodate all Hindus, but also people from other faiths and religion. After searching for long all over Southeast Michigan, Vijay and the team sitting in this room found this 11.6 acre land located at the intersection of 9 Mile and Napier. Vijay has a firm believer of serving the entire community irrespective of religion, caste, and creed. He warmly welcomes every single visitor with equal love, never-ending warmth, compassion, and his famous $1 million smile. Why is he doing this, would one ask? And to know this, all what one has to do is peek into a little bit into the Hindu mythology and read briefly about the temple's presiding deity, Bhakta Hanuman. Bhakta Hanuman combines two of the most cherished traits in Hindu worship tradition, that is heroic, strong, assertive excellence, loving and emotional devotion to a personal God. Throughout Hindu mythology, he epitomizes an unwavering devotion and dedication towards the Lord. The current statue of Sri Bhakta Hanuman that we have is 16 feet tall, is at a current temple and is standing in prayer position, humbly welcoming all that visit the temple. As you research, you will see that Sri Hanuman is one of the few Hindu deities that is worshipped globally across many cultures and countries, right from Japan to China, to Cambodia, Thailand, and even African countries. And more so recently, he's also made his way into the offices of Fortune 500 CEOs, and more notably, former President Barack Obama is known to be a devotee of Sri Hanuman and carries a pendant with him all the while. So to this very reason, this is our vision of having this temple that we are envisioning be built and end up serving not only the Hindus and the Indians, but also a community center for the local community. Vijay Raghavan, through this temple and community center, always aspires to serve the local community, but unify under one roof the two major sects of Hinduism, the Vaishnavas and the Shaivas. So in addition to Sri Hanuman, this temple will also house deities that represent the two sects of Hinduism. The heights of the idols that we have representing the two sects range from 10 to 21 feet in height. And it is our vision that the new temple, when completed with all its magnificent deities and architecture, will serve as a unique travel destination point for both Hindus and non-Hindus from all over the country. Before I hand it over to Doug to explain the architecture, I just want to briefly touch upon the why and the look of the building that you'll have seen. We are from South India. The South Indian Hindu temples are designed and built to what is called as the Agama Shastra, which is similar to Vastu Shastra or Feng Shui from China. Agama Shastra is a Sanskrit word, and what that means is it is a doctrine by which people have to worship. Temples are designed, rituals are followed, and other traditions under Hinduism. It is a tradition and through scriptures that is handed down generations with the standing that anyone wishing to design and build temples, they have to follow the scriptures and the religious rules that govern, be it the size of the deities, the columns, the figurines, the height of the roofs, the gopurams, the shikhars, and other aspects that you will see in the presentation. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Doug and David to walk us through the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sadasiv. My name is Doug Nietzsche. I'm the architect on this project. You probably know me from past industrial and office projects in Lyon Township. Just a short little story. Actually, the first project I ever designed back in 1980 was a Hindu temple in Troy, Michigan called the Bhartiya Temple. And I've been involved with the Indian community ever since and done 3 or 4 temples in the meantime. I've been to India. I've been welcomed into this culture like I'm one of them. So I'm delighted to have been selected to design this project. I've been working with Sadasiv. He is really the expert with respect to all of the authenticity and the character of this building. And so a lot of this is dictated by the priests and the sculptors that are in India. We'll be using American materials like GFRC and different things that can be easily molded. But this is all meant to mimic hand-carved marble features that you would see on an ancient temple in India. Some of these temples are 2,000 years old. You know, having studied architecture, they never taught me about Hindu architecture. So it's just a fascinating derivative of my career to have learned about it and get to do these things. All that being said, I also know that these buildings are quite unusual, and it's not unusual for the public to kind of be a little afraid of the unknown. So for that reason, we've done very elaborate renderings, and David's going to show an animation now that will show you the outside of the building, both from an aerial view and then from a ground view. We also have another piece of software which will allow us to show you any view you would like to look at. That's kind of a live virtual reality where if you want to see it from 1,000 feet away on 9 Mile or Napier Road, we can also show you that. I think you'll see that the proportions and architecture speaks for itself. It's truly a special building, but a bit unusual by American standards. In the communities where I've done these before, such as Troy, that temple in Troy is one of the most valued cultural sites in Troy. They're very proud of it. It speaks to their cultural diversity. And I can't tell you how many awards they've gotten for their civic involvement and just being a good citizen and always being ready to accommodate any needs of the community. And I'm absolutely positive this temple will be exactly like that. So David, if you'll go ahead and show the animation, I think pictures is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, absolutely. This animation is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. If anyone wants me to stop it, just let me know.
So thank you, David, for showing that. What I'll do next is take you inside the building. I'd like to explain a little bit how the shickers on the outside, the towers, the spires, in other words, relate to the inside of the building. The two front spires are gopurams, and they're symbolize the entrance to the building. The large wooden door you saw was a ceremonial, a decorative feature, and really isn't used per se. But to the left and right of that are the vestibules where people will enter the building. Inside the building, there's basically two temples. The deities are divided up into two separate areas. The Temple A has approximately 476 seats, and Temple B has approximately 800 seats. Now, these will never be used simultaneously. We expect the maximum occupancy of the building to be about 900 people. So people will come and congregate in these worship halls and pray to the deity of their choice. And then in the basement, there's the banquet hall and a small auditorium. Again, these would not be used simultaneously. The people would cycle through these things during a visit to the temple. David, if you'll pull up that cross-sectional view, I'll explain the relationship of. So this is a cross-section in Temple A. The largest of all of the deities is the thing you see in the center there. That's 21 feet tall. And with clearance, that would be the thing inside the building, the shaded area there. With the clearances and structural requirements above that, it really projects the building up to about 27 feet 6 inches. So that's the reason we're asking for a height variance. As you can see, we've kind of shoehorned things in. We've kept the building as low as we can, but even with that, we're looking at needing about 2.5 feet more height than what the ordinance dictates. And we think that the way we've arranged this building on the site, it really minimizes the height because it's set so far into the site. All of our setbacks are much greater than what the minimum would be. So as compared to say a subdivision with houses, really the visual effect of this building will be less than or equal to what you'd see if you had houses that were, say, only 40 feet from the property line. Our building is 100 feet from the property line, or actually much more than that. The shicker above that, go back to that section there, David, if you would. So the height of the spires are really a function of the size of the deity inside the building. The 83 feet 11 inches is dictated to us from the sculptors and the artisans in India based on Vastu Sastra proportions. So it's kind of a domino effect. Once you have a 21-foot statue in the building, that dictates the 83 feet 11-inch spire on the outside of the building. As we go through the construction drawings, these may change a little bit. This is just a concept. It's probably within 2 or 3 feet of the final outcome, though. So this is really an essential part of the temple, and thus the need for that variance. That's really the presentation that I had. If I want to answer any questions you would have.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Any questions for Doug?
Rich, this is Kurt Radke. Can you said we could see the building in an approach like from coming north down Napier? Can you do?
Yes.
Say a quarter mile away and then come up?
So obviously we've shown the trees a little more, but probably 10, 50 years into their lifespan, they won't look that way to begin with.
So this is at eye level.
But we
Go ahead, Doug.
No, go ahead, David. You can narrate through this better than
Yeah, I
I.
was just gonna say, this is at eye level, and you can kind of start to see the heights, but the trees are blocking it a little bit. So if I just come up a little bit over eye level, you kind of see where we're at here.
David,
David, you're in the intersection right now, it looks like, right?
Correct. Yep. This is the intersection of 9 and Napier.
Okay.
So Napier runs this way, and then 9 Mile is this way.
Can you go down 9 Mile for me west and then come up to the building, please?
Nope. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, go west, please, on 9 Mile. I visited the two temples, one in Canton and one on Taft and 11 Mile. And I was surprised. It was, the buildings are set back and there was a lot of trees. You really couldn't see.
David, go back like 500 to 1,000 feet west on 9 Mile and then drive up to the building as if you're traveling east on 9 Mile. Yeah, there you go.
So I can only go back about this far just because that's, well, I can go a little bit further.
Okay, now there's limits to the model.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go as far as I can and then look in that direction. There we go.
There, that's good.
So if I start traveling east, kind of looking over every once in a while.
David, do you have a rendering without the trees? Because we're looking at something, what, 5-10 years down, plus half the year, there's no leaves on the trees.
Why don't I do this? I can quickly turn those off. It'll just take me 30 seconds here. And then the model will repopulate in just a few seconds and all the plantings will be off. This shouldn't take more than 30 seconds here.
While this is loading, Doug, this is Bronco. I have a quick question about the 21-foot deity inside.
Yes.
Is that based on a choice of someone in India? Is it based on the local people? Is it based on building size? I'm just wondering how you guys got a 21-foot, if that came from anywhere, or if it was just, it looked really nice with the size of the building.
No, that's actually the existing deity. So that's
okay.
Going to be relocated into the building. I'm not sure if it's that one, but there's a similar large deity in the Temple B, which is, I just showed one here. They're virtually identical. I think BJ could answer that. One of the two is actually existing. They're approximately the same size, within 6 inches. Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, so here's the model without any plantings. So this will give you a better sense. So let me go back where I was over here. Get down to eye level. So there you go. Is that more of what you're looking for?
Yes.
So each of the spires is above one of the main deities. There's, I think, 12 deities in the building, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them have spires above them. Some of them do not have spires. And the style and architecture of each is dictated by the specific statue inside the building. So you see a variation in the appearance that's dictated by the actual authenticity of the architecture for that given deity in the building. Maybe we should go to the floor plan and walk through the different shrines that are in the building. So you'll see Temple A and Temple B. Temple B is on the right. The large spire you see on the outside is above the main deity, which is the big square there, which David is highlighting. There's 4 other subordinate deities in front of that on the left and the right of the seating area, and they do not have shikkars. And then similarly on the Temple B on the left side, which is a little larger, there's 7 secondary deities and then 4 main deities along the west side there. The darker ones are the ones with the spires. The ones with the orange squares are the ones without. So just a little bit about the interior of the building. There, you'll see a large coat and shoe room on the left and right corners there. That when you come into this building, everyone has to remove their shoes. And so that is a necessity for entering the inner sanctum of the temple. The center stairway is a kind of a grand stairway, which is a marble curved stairway which leads down into the basement. But there's egress stairs altogether separate from that in the corners, the 2 front corners and in the center of the rear of the building. The rooms in the middle are prep rooms. There's kitchens that they actually will be tending to the gods, and they're given offerings and things of that nature. So there's prep rooms for that ceremonial aspect of the building. There's always fresh flowers everywhere in the building. So there's more or less a flower shop back in that center area of the building. These are all just support areas for the individual shrines. You'll see 2 small rooms to the left and the right of the main deity in Temple A. Those are small prayer rooms for group gatherings of 15 to 20 people in a small prayer room. The basement floor plan, we really haven't refined it very much yet. It's I would call it a 50% complete floor plan at this stage, but it shows the banquet hall on the left, which seats about 400 people. And then there's a small auditorium for performances on the right.
Just
Again,
out of
these
curiosity, can I ask a quick question, Doug? Out
Sure.
of curiosity, is that sufficient ingress and egress in that basement in the event of a fire?
Well, there's 3 egress stairs, which are fire rated stairs. Yeah, we're actually, from a code point of view, we've got almost twice as much stairs as what we need. I know it seems amazing, but
Yeah, it does. It seems like I mean, I picture like 400 people over there trying to run out one door, you know?
Well,
but that's just my question. If it is, it is.
No, that's a good question. And we'll definitely exceed the code. I think it's a great question. That there's no other egress from the basement other than the stairs, so that's a major concern. The building will be fully fire suppressed, of course, but David, if you'll point to the 3 main fire stairs, one in the lower right-hand corner, and then one in the center of the back of the building, and one in the lower left-hand corner. These stairs are very wide stairs. They're 6 feet wide or 7 feet wide for each flight. So they're high capacity stairways. But that's all dictated by code. And I'm being a certified code official, I always exceed the code.
So you're saying the whole building is ADA approved?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we're going to strive for some LEED energy sustainability features to the building as well. Of course, that's all budget permitted, but Sudasov is an expert with LEED certification, and he's insisting on that be included in the building. And to the extent we're able, we will.
Has this property been purchased or is it pending?
It's purchased. It's owned by the temple. You'll see the hatched areas in the basement. Those are actually earth-filled shafts under the main deities. The Vastu requirements necessitate that the deities sit on the earth. No, in India, there wouldn't be a basement under a temple, under an ancient temple. So this is a way of meeting the religious requirement for grounding of the idols. And it really is, from an architect's point of view, a large amount of space that's otherwise unusable. So it's deceiving. There's probably 15% of the basement, which is really filled in with earth. Yeah, the other feature of the temple, I'm sure you noticed it on the renderings, is there's a circumambulatory pathway around the entire building. Part of the ceremonial approach to the building, a visitor will walk around the building first before entering the building. So that is a covered walkway that surrounds the entire building. You'll see a kind of a repetitiveness to all of the features. These are molded shapes. They're actually GFRC, which is glass reinforced concrete. It's about a 3/4 inch thick shell of concrete, specially treated to be freeze thaw resistant. It's all done to stimulate the what would have been a hand carved piece of stone in a true temple in India. All the temples in India mostly are real stone. But you can see it's a highly ornate building. It's the kind of thing that is interesting to even non-Hindus. I've seen that in play at the Bhartiya Temple in Troy. There's a constant flow of people that are just interested in the building. And true to the Hindu religion, these people are welcomed into the building with open arms. They're the most peaceful, welcoming folks I've ever met. It really is a wonderful thing. I think that, you know, there's the David Barr Park across in Novi, which is also kind of a hidden gem with sculpture done by a world famous sculptor that nobody ever knew he lived there. Well, the city bought that and it's become a little art park. In a way, this building goes very well with that. While its main intent is as a religious home for the congregation, it just fits well with that thing over in Novi, I think, for the general public to go and just see what Hindu architecture looks like.
Hey, Doug, do you want to talk a little bit about the mechanical units on the roof?
Yeah, so you'll see a parapet wall all around the building. That is really what gives it the 26.5-foot height. If we just measured the building to the sloped roof, we'd actually comply with the ordinance. But that serves two very important purposes. That parapet hides all of the rooftop units. We don't want to see rooftop units conflicting with the towers. And it also is authentic to what a Hindu temple would look like. A Hindu temple cannot have a sloped roof visible. That would be completely inconsistent with the principles of Vastu Shastra. So that is a necessity for those two reasons, and I think it adds to the building. But as a result, it puts us a little bit above that height limit that is in your ordinance, which I believe is really meant for residential structures. We did a little research, in fact, on churches and temples, and this building is actually fairly low profile compared to other temples. And, you know, we've just done the best we can to keep it so that that variance is the absolute minimum. Working with your staff, with Brian and Catherine, that was made loud and clear from the very beginning that we needed to minimize that divergence from the ordinance.
Doug, outdoor marble stains, from what I've seen, pretty easily from the harsh weather conditions. When you're here next time, can you bring actual photos of
Yes.
marble that's been exposed 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years to the meeting?
I can. As a matter of fact, we can show you some pictures here of the temple in Troy. It gives you an idea how the GFRC is actually attached to a steel structure. I know that's not directly answering your question about weathering of the surface, but it has a coating on it, a water repellent coating, and it has to be power washed about every 5 to 10 years, or it does get quite unsightly. It's like any precast, it tends to attract dirt. And this is a concern with all precast concrete. And there are coatings that are very water repellent. So that's much less a problem now than it used to be. But you can see there on the photograph, they're starting to install these panels on one of the towers at the temple in Troy. These are made by a company in Pennsylvania. They're artisans in their own right because they have to make molds for all of these shapes. And they have to be very precise to be able to attach. They're bolted onto a steel structure. So the tolerances are fairly tight. What you're seeing there is the base panel, which has very little ornament on it, but I think we have a photograph of the finished product there.
Yeah, I'm just, let's see. There we go.
So this is a Northern India style. You'll see a little difference in the character of the spires, but the Southern style is much more ornate and truncated in a different shape, a different way. That's just the difference between North and South India. So what you're seeing there was an addition that was done in 2008. It was a $10, $12 million project, adding on to the original temple, which was built in 1980.
And Doug, this is Bhartiya Temple in Troy.
This is Bhartiya Temple in Troy. I'm mainly showing it to show the use of GFRC. This goes through all kinds of ASTM freeze thaw testing. It has to pass however many cycles of freeze thaw testing. It's a permanent material. It's equal to stone.
In terms of color, Doug, is this what we would expect on this building as well? Or is there a tinting that is an option? Or I guess, can you describe color for us?
Yes, the rendering is the present thinking from Sudasev and the team in India. It may be refined a little bit, but you'll see a two-tone approach where the features are a little darker color than the rest. It's definitely a darker brown than what the temple in Troy is. And it may be even darker than that in real life. We're still experimenting with that, but we would submit final samples to the township to lock in the color. Rest assured, they'll be carefully coordinated. Really, the key to the colors is that they go together, that they harmonize with one another, and we'll do everything possible to make that happen. The color is mixed into the concrete, so it's integral with the GFRC. It's not a painted coating. So it's prone, it has normal weathering effects. It does fade over the years. So all of that will be taken into consideration.
Doug, are there any exterior speakers on this building?
No, that's a question that I've been asked on every temple. That's a different religion. They do not have speakers on the outside of a Hindu temple. In fact, it's a very serene, tranquil environment, especially inside the building. The fact that there's no shoes worn, it really is a very somber mood, a very peaceful mood in the building. There's not music playing. There may be music playing, but only at the time that the priest would have that as part of his prayers. And certainly nothing on the outside of the building.
Doug, this is Kurt Radke again. What about weddings? Will there be wedding receptions in the building?
Yes, I'm sure the banquet hall will be used for that. One of the unique things about a Hindu temple is there's no alcohol allowed. So they do have weddings, but they're not like the weddings that I go to, where that's a main ingredient.
Is there music for the reception or the wedding reception or the wedding itself?
There's music. There's all kinds of ornamentation. I can let Sadasev explain it. I've been to a few Hindu weddings. They're magnificent, even sometimes with a white horse and carriage, not going in the building, but magnificent events.
I'm gonna have you wrap this up.
Yeah.
So we can ask questions. Usually we give the applicant 20 minutes and we've been at 40 minutes now. So
Well, thank you. I'm sorry for going on and on.
that's all right. No. It's interesting, but we're gonna bring it back to the planning commission here. Unless you have
Thank you.
anything specific you want to add.
No, that's it. I think I've
Okay.
covered everything and then some.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start. Carl, did you want to start?
Sure, I just unmuted. Great presentation, Doug. It was very informative. I think I'll do the house cleaning stuff. On the shade trees compared to the ornamentals, just with the aspect of the building, I normally like the ornamentals, and I don't remember what the trade-off is there, but I think I'd rather see, because of it's such a big building, 68,000 square feet, the shade trees instead of the ornamentals. It just kind of makes sense to me. And again, it's across the planning commission's choice. I'd really like to see that sidewalk going as far as it can go. I don't know how difficult it's going to be, but if this goes in and it comes to fruition, it's going to be a big part of our community. And we have a lot of foot traffic in our community, and we want to keep it that way. So I would encourage the sidewalk to be run the whole length of the site. We've got lot coverage. You're going for a variance on that and another variance. God, I got so many notes written down here. I got to see which one is which. Give me 1 second. And I want to say the questions that were asked were just great questions. Like Mike and Kurt, they answered all those questions for me. I think those are the only two things I have right now. So that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Carl. Kurt?
I agree with everything that Carl said. I really think we need to follow our landscaping, and the deciduous trees are going to be important. I did talk to some folks in the community in Canton that attend the temple, and the subdivision right next to the temple is very, the gentleman was telling me the homes don't go up for sale because people want to live close to the temple and they like to walk to the temple. So to Carl's point, the sidewalk, I would just hate to have people walking down Napier. They're traveling about 50 miles an hour now, and we need to make sure those sidewalks go to the ends of the property, because that's going to be an issue down the road for sure. Then that issue with the lot coverage. Yeah, that's going to be, they need to work to try to get that, meet that standard. 25%, I think it is.
Correct.
Impressive presentation though. So appreciate that.
Well, the lot coverage is way over the 25 feet
Yeah.
required. Or
Yep.
25%, it's at like 45 and
It's at-
46%. So
Correct.
that is an issue.
Yeah.
I think it was 39 on the after they made some changes.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Kurt. Ron?
Yeah, I agree with both Kurt and Carl. I think the sidewalks need to go in. Lot coverage is something we need to work on. I don't think the height is such a problem for me. I think the couple of feet for the parapet wall is not a problem. It's a beautiful looking building. I think it's very cool. You don't get to see many things like that built anymore. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Franco?
I think the building looks gorgeous. I used to actually live by the one in Canton. And I had friends who lived behind it, and it was always quiet. Even when they were in service, you never really heard much. My only concern would be the lot coverage.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. I agree. Lot coverage is an issue. We'll hear next meeting about the flooding for that property, but lot coverage is definitely not right for that property. But anyway, I had a question. I don't know who to address this to. In your cover letter or applicant letter, you talked about, I'm going to read a sentence here. It says, we have more than 5,000 registered devotees from the above mentioned communities who actively participate in temple activities frequently, and we anticipate this will grow substantially. In the presentation, I think Doug said the building is set up for 900 people. I don't know if you could address that, someone.
You want me to?
Well, let me, Sadasa, just chime in there if I stumble here, but I think the difference there is that that's the larger population that may on occasion visit the temple. But one of the unique things about a Hindu temple is they really don't have a membership congregation like you'd have for a Catholic church or something like that. The Hindu religion has a typical member will go to many temples. They may go to one week and another one another week. On certain special times of the year, they may go to all three in one day. So there's kind of a revolving door. And so it's hard to estimate really the flux of people into the building. The numbers we've got here based on that we gave you for parking, for traffic, and for seating in the temple is based on their existing facility and the anticipated amount of growth from what they're having now. For example, now they only have maybe 60 cars per Saturday and Sunday. And we're expecting that'll go up to 150 just by the proportional growth of their building and their followers. But I don't know if that answers it, but it's a revolving door. That's the way I put it.
Okay. And are there certain days of the week, is it Friday, Saturday, where they're going to see the largest influx of people?
Yeah, so it's very much like a church, and normal American church in that respect. Saturday and Sunday is the main flow of people. And there's going to be a slow, just the priests, the staff, and a few visitors. This temple is always open, so people can come and pray individually in small groups every day of the week. But that's usually, they're telling me, around 35 people maximum per day, including the priest and the staff. So it's a very low flow during the week. And then it increases to the 130, I think, per day on Saturday and Sunday. And then there's 3 events per year, which is the New Year's celebration, the Diwali, which is the Festival of Lights, and the anniversary date when they occupy the building will become a special day, which will be celebrated every year. On those 3 days, they may actually overflow the parking. And for that, we assured the township that there will be a shuttle bus service and off-site parking. They've already talked to a service that will do that. So in that event that there's extra parking needed, it will be accommodated. I can tell you that's done in Troy and the other temples for those special days out of the year. It'll be handled with professional and attendance at both ends of the parking arrangement.
Okay, all right, thanks, Doug. James.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt?
Yes, sure.
Looking back at my notes, can I ask Brian a question? There was an issue with loading stations or slots. 3 are required, but only 1 is needed. Is there going to need to be a variance for that, or is that going to be the planning commission's decision?
That's a planning commission decision on the site plan. And I want to be clear, I think there's plenty of space for all 3 in terms of in the drive lanes and things like that. So I don't see any issue if you have to require them to designate 3 spaces, but 1 is all that is shown on the plan. And from an operational standpoint, 1 makes sense to me. But to answer your question, the planning commission has the authority to alter that particular requirement.
All right, thank you.
I agree with Brian, Kurt. That was on my notes too, as well, to mention that, but I'm okay with the 1 loading dock as long as the rest of the planning commissioners are.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Chuck?
Yeah, 1 loading dock's enough. I'm in agreement with that. Beautiful building. I take a little different approach. It's so darn nice. I'd rather see ornamental trees than deciduous. It just seemed like we were trying to cover it up almost before it was even built. And I just favor ornamental trees. The only, I guess, comment I would have to the applicants, you kind of see where you are, continue to work very closely, even though the timeline is short. Work closely with McKenna, work closely with CES for some of the issues there, but primarily the biggest obstacle is lot coverage, and that's something that'll have to be dealt with. But in general, it's a beautiful building, and I don't see any issues from my standpoint. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Patricia?
Yes, well, I have to agree with all my colleagues, especially Ron. I personally don't have a problem with the 2.6 extra square foot on the top, or the 2.6 in height on the parapets. I think that's actually needed because I like that they do want to hide the what's on the top of the buildings, but that might be a ZBA choice and not ours. And I think the lot coverage might be an issue. So I think that also you might have to go to the ZBA for that if that's what you plan to do, or come back with a revised site plan. I'm with Jim Chuck. I like the ornamental trees, but I think the building is beautiful. And I did a lot of research on the religion, and from everything I read and talking to a few people, they are very gentle worshipers. And I learned a lot. And even I appreciate that they came here to explain a little more about the religion. And Doug, you did a really great job too, understanding the temples and that they represent mountains. And I just, it was very interesting and eye-opening for me. I would like to see the sidewalk. I agree with Kurt on that. We are promoting, and our township board is very active in getting more sidewalks in Lyon Township. Let's see, what else did I have? I'm good with the loading being one, and maybe they can get rid of some of the parking spaces that might help with some of the lot coverage. And that's what I'm good. And you go, it's interesting to think about if, you know, all the mega churches that are around us, you know, the one in Brighton and the big one in Novi, I think it's Oak Point, and the big one, Northridge and Ward shuffles. I went to Ward for a while, and they do shuttle people too. So only if they do that for their 3 times a year, that's understandable. We do it with Kite Fest too. So I think the building's beautiful. So that's all. Those are all my comments.
Okay, thanks, Patty. All right. Any last comments or questions? Brian, are we going to need a public hearing proposal?
What do you mean in terms of a proposal? I'm sorry, Mike.
Well, not proposal, but a motion for a public hearing.
You don't need to. We've already scheduled that based on the application.
Okay.
So yeah, steps from here are if the applicants are going to make any changes based on your comments tonight, they would resubmit them to us in time for CES and myself and Carol to review in terms of any ordinance changes or things like that. Those would be resubmitted, and those will be in your next packet. At your July 12th meeting, we will review the updated site plan. Assuming that there is one, we will go through the special land use criteria, which we have not discussed tonight, and you'll hold a public hearing. Now, the way that we've gone through this process so far, likely you're going to, I'm going to torture Doug and ask him to go through the presentation again, because I suspect that we're going to have a lot of new members of the public who should be made aware of all the things that we talked about tonight. I think they're very helpful in the process, and so we'll do that again. Then at that point, it would be up to the Planning Commission to take any action on the site plan, any action on the special land use in the form of a recommendation to the Township Board. And then assuming that action is taken, it would go to the next Township Board meeting. Only after that Township Board action, then would the Zoning Board of Appeals get involved for either the lot coverage or the building height variances, assuming that they're still necessary. So we've got a little ways to go yet, but yeah, and you are all set for the public hearing on July 12th. And members of the public at that time will be able to speak. We'll probably limit them to the 2 minutes that we've been doing for public hearings lately. And hopefully we are able to address any comments or concerns that they have.
Great, thanks, Brian. Any other comments or questions? None. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And thank you for all the information. And I think we'll see you again in several weeks.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
One last,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mike, if I could.
yeah, sure.
From the applicants team, do you have any specific other questions that you want to ask? I'm sorry to open this back up, Mike, but I want to give the applicants a chance.
Well, your main concerns that I have heard so far is the sidewalk, number one. You want it all the way to the property line. Okay. and I can answer that question immediately. Yeah, we will do that. So that problem is solved. So the lot use size, the 36% over 25%. That one is a iffy because you would need some of those parking spaces, but you know, we wanted to go as per a variance on that. If we need to reduce a few of the parking spaces, because 291 is minimum required, I understand from Deb's presentation, and we got 301. So we have 14 more or something like that. So if we have 14 more and if we reduce it, that may use the lot usage. If that's going to be a major concern for the commission, then we will talk to Mark Mahajan, who's our site plan engineer, to adjust the lot usage. And I would like to have all the 301 parking spaces. But again, if we need to comply, we need to comply. So it's no problem. And
Right.
I have a question. So I don't have a question. One of our management team got a question.
So how is the lot size calculated? You say, when you say 36% versus 25%, what is 36% computed? How is 25%? Just to help us to see where we can optimize.
Okay, Brian, can you address that? And tonight I've heard 4 different percentages on this. In the McKenna letter, I believe it said 40%, but if you could address that and if we could get a specific number.
Sure. The lot coverage that is cited on the site plan is, let me look up my numbers here. We have 46% lot coverage if you did not include the right of way. I'm going to get you the actual lot coverage. Lot coverage for non-residential uses is the part or percent of the lot that is occupied by buildings, structures, paved surfaces, and other impervious surfaces. Now, the plan itself will be dedicating part of the right-of-way for Napier Road, so that will technically not be part of this lot any longer. So by my calculations or by my definition, I believe the lot coverage right now is 46% once that right-of-way is dedicated. So ways to reduce that would include removing parking spaces. If there are drive lanes that can be minimized in size, that would be another potential way to make improvements to that. Potentially shrinking some of the walkways around the building, if that's feasible. I'm not sure if it is, but the building size shrinking as well would be another way to make that happen. So there are a few things that I believe that the design team could play around with. I'm not quite sure how feasible it is to get down to that 25%. I mean, the reality is it's a residential standard. When we start looking at our commercial districts, the lot coverages are much larger. However, the use aside, the 25% lot coverage is intended to rule all of the development within this district. So there's not really a way to get around that other than a variance.
Brian, if they purchase more property, if that was a possibility, that would obviously fix that problem too, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Kurt. Yes, making the lot larger and not increasing any of the impervious surface on this lot, that would help out.
Should we say that? No? Okay. What the heck? There's no secrets. We are working to purchase extra properties. We are already in the process of acquiring some other properties adjacent to us. We are talking to the owners. We haven't negotiated and did anything. There is about a little over 3 acres of parcel north to us. And we are in the process of talking to the owners. And if we acquire that, then that may not happen right away because we have to spend all the money and the budget to build the building. But if that's going to be acquired, then we will be under your or close to your 25%, because that's another 3 acres of usable land.
So the only thing that we would need in terms of being able to use that towards the lot coverage standard is a purchase contract or some form of agreement between you and that owner, indicating that that will indeed become part of this as lot coverage. So, we don't have to hash that out this evening, but it is good to know that that's a possibility also.
Right. Very good.
Yeah, we would rather have decorative trees rather than big shade trees, because why hide such a beautiful building from the people's sight? Like Patricia said, it's a beautiful building. Why hide it? And it's set way back, and put decorative ornamental trees more rather than big shade trees, and that will eventually hide such a fantastic building the architects have designed. And so I've been very happy with what the architects have done of our dream. This is a dream come true kind of a temple. And sorry for talking too much, but when we started the temple 4 years ago in Farmington Hills, and we thought 4,000 square feet is going to be more than sufficient. And Hanuman is worshipped from north, south, east, west, and everybody in India. And it doesn't matter what region you are from. It doesn't matter which god you believe in or anything like that, which idol that you want to worship. And but Hanuman is universal. And so we started that, and it is a big dream. And so I think it's going to come to fruition with some minor variations that we need to follow with all your help.
Okay, thank you very much. We will, nothing else. We'll see you again here in several weeks.
A couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Brian, are you going to discuss master plan tonight?
I will let you off the hook this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. I don't think you'll have any fight on that one. Patricia,
Yes,
Community report.
yes, I do. The Township Board had their Monday, June 7th meeting, and we had, let's see here, we had our reports. We had under unfinished business, we had the consideration and the adoption of the conditional rezoning for Culvers, and that was the second reading, and that passed. Under new business, we had the consideration of the approval of the water service agreement between the township and Pulte Homes. That is going to be on our next agenda item. There was still some things on there that we didn't feel were right. So that again will be on our July meeting. We had Kirkway Estates Plan Development, the minor amendment, which we had suggested, and the Township Board approved that. We had the Oaks Site Condo. Remember, they split it in the phases. The Township Board approved that. That was 85 lots. Lyon Township Public Library planning updates. They, the town or the library, Josh came and presented like an update what's going on in the library, and then we asked him to send us the plans for what I believe they're thinking about for the either a new library. I think they're going to do some research on modifying the library or looking for some land. We'll wait to see what Josh brings back in the month of July. We had the Huron Valley Trail Phase 2 resurfacing that Leslie's going to go out for bid for that. And they did finish the Huron Valley, the first portion that we did, and it's really nice. So we're pretty excited about that. Plus, we did get the $75,000 grant that we applied for, and we're really thankful for that. Let's see, approval of planning department. Oh yeah, the fees for the schedule modification for pre-application meetings. We had this brought to us by Leslie and Brian, and sometimes Carol. People come in for pre-app meetings and then they don't do their project, but we're kind of stuck with the consultant's fees. So they're going to be putting up a little fee for that, which is, I think, very smart. We had the consideration and approval of the Lyon DDA core sewer installment agreements. That is, the board is going to, the sewer enterprise fund is going to loan some of the businesses in the core development of the downtown so that they can hook to sewer, which is really good for them and good for the environment. So we had two more that came before the board. We had a consideration of and the introduction of ordinance for the Lyon Code of Ordinances that amend portions of Chapter 15, design and construction standards. We approved those. I think that was first reading. We also had another consideration for the introduction of the ordinance. It's a long thing. I'm not going to read it, but it has to come to the Planning Commission. So Carol will be bringing, or Brian will be bringing that to the Planning Commission. We couldn't have it on the board. And then we had the resolution 2021-15. That's to adopt the poverty exemptions for the Lyon Township Board of Review. And so we had already approved that a couple months ago, but the state changed to tweak something, so we had to tweak it in. And so that was from Carol's office. We got that corrected, and we got that approved. And that's all we had. Listen, we're busy.
Very good. Thank you, Patty.
And just to update on Tina, yes, she's gone. We do have an advertisement out there to hire another DDA person. I am not part of that committee, but I was told they did interview a person. I think it was a she, but I'm not 100% sure. But I guess they just felt that that person was not the right fit. So we're still actively looking. So we're working on that too. And we're working on the hall like crazy. So most of us all got moved into the other side, and they're remodeling the old side right now. So it's a little crazy. All the girls are in, they're 2 by 2 in each office, and but it's lovely, and we're happy right now. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Mike, if I may.
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to inform them that Outlook Express was compromised a couple times. The last time was I got a message from Mike Conflitti on Outlook, and so I didn't open it. I contacted Mike because it just didn't sound like Mike, and I says, Carl, could you please spare me a minute? Yeah, yada yada. And so I just want to make everybody aware that there's people out there fishing on Outlook Express on our website. So
that's
correct.
Buyer beware.
Carl, I had it from John.
Oh, really?
Dolan. Yeah, same thing.
Wow.
I knew that wasn't his verbiage. Can you
Yeah.
help me out in this? I'm thinking, I'm right down the hall.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good catch, Carl.
Yeah.
All right. Motion, please. Motion by Mr. Chuck.
Correct.
Support.
Support by, who was that?
Mr. Radke.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right, good job, everyone. Thank you.
On a side note,
Good night, everyone.
I will
Good
not
night,
be at
everybody.
the July 12th meeting. I'll be on vacation, so I
Oh,
won't be signing
Oh,
in.
sure.
Yeah.
It's only the second meeting